My mother, Eleanor, didn't even look in my direction when she said it. Her eyes were fixed on the steak she was meticulously cutting, the silver knife making a grating sound against the porcelain plate. For a moment, that was the only noise in the otherwise silent dining room. "We sold the house," she said. Her voice was so placid, so matter-of-fact, you'd think she was commenting on the weather. "You have 1 month to find a new place. You're out." I put my fork down. The motion felt unnaturally slow. I looked over at my father, Richard. He was intensely studying his mound of mashed potatoes, pointedly refusing to meet my gaze. My gaze then slid to my sisters, Sophia and Mia. There was no shock on their faces. There was only the faintest hint of a smirk. They exchanged a brief knowing glance, as if they were sharing a private joke at a movie only they found amusing. There was no room for discussion. There had been no warning. There was no, "We're sorry this is happening." There was only a deadline. The next morning, I woke to the sound of car doors slamming shut. I pulled myself out of bed and peered through the window to see them all driving away. They didn't even bother to say a final goodbye. They just left me standing there, alone in a house that suddenly felt vast, empty, and full of echoes. They imagined they were leaving me behind to flounder and struggle. 6 months passed. The house was no longer quiet. It was peaceful. My life was finally my own. Then, my phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. A text from my mother. "Why are you still there?" I looked at the message on the screen and felt a cold, hard smile form on my lips. She truly believed I was squatting. She thought I was pathetically refusing to leave the home I'd been kicked out of. She had absolutely no idea that I was the one who had bought the house. Before we dive into how all of this unfolded, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below letting me know where in the world you're watching from. To truly grasp why I didn't burst into tears or start screaming at that dinner table, you have to understand my place in that family. You need to understand that for me, silence was not an absence of sound. It was a survival mechanism. It was my normal. It was what kept me safe. I was the middle child, but I wasn't the bridge that connected my sisters. I was the chasm that lay between them. My older sister, Sophia, was the family's star. She was loud, she was demanding, and she possessed a kind of beauty that made people genuinely stop and stare. My mother, Eleanor, absolutely adored that. She thrived on the attention Sophia brought to our family. If Sophia so much as sneezed, my mother was instantly by her side with a box of tissues and a warm blanket. If Sophia mentioned wanting a new dress for some party, my father, Richard, had his credit card out before she could even finish her sentence. My younger sister, Mia, was the permanent baby of the family. She was cute, profoundly manipulative, and had mastered the art of playing our parents like a fiddle. If she broke an expensive vase, it was a terrible accident. If she failed a test at school, it was clearly the teacher's fault. She was insulated from all consequences. She was coddled and protected. And then there was me, Chloe. I was the invisible one. I wasn't loud. I wasn't demanding. I didn't get into trouble. And I certainly didn't win any beauty pageants. I was just there. I was a fixture, part of the background, as noticeable as the beige wallpaper in the hallway or the worn-out rug in the den. My mother rewarded volume. She craved noise, excitement, and drama. She and my sisters were a constant storm of yelling, laughing, and fighting. They consumed all the oxygen in any room they entered. I learned at a very young age that if I wanted to survive in that house, I had to make myself smaller. I had to take up as little space as humanly possible. I vividly remember my 10th birthday. I woke up early that day, a knot of excitement in my stomach. I crept downstairs to the kitchen, half expecting pancakes or maybe just a single balloon tied to a chair. The kitchen was empty. My mother was on the phone in the living room, talking animatedly about Sophia's upcoming dance recital. My father was absorbed in the morning paper. I sat down at the table. "Good morning," I said. My mother just waved a dismissive hand at me, signaling for me to be quiet. She pointed a finger toward the cereal box on the counter. I poured myself a bowl of cereal. I ate it alone. Not a single person said, "Happy birthday." By noon, the crushing realization had settled in. They had forgotten. I went up to my room and escaped into a book. At dinner time, my mother ordered pizza, not as a celebration, but because she was too exhausted to cook after a long day of taking Mia to the mall. When the pizza arrived, Sophia grabbed the last slice of pepperoni, my absolute favorite. "Hey," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I wanted that one." "Don't be so selfish, Chloe," my mother snapped without looking up. Sophia had a long day. I didn't argue. I just took a slice of plain cheese pizza and went to my room. 2 days later, my aunt called and happened to ask how my birthday was. I saw my mother's face go pale. She quickly laughed it off, hung up the phone, and then, on her way home from the grocery store, she bought me a generic plastic-wrapped cupcake. She placed it on the counter without a word. "Here," she said later. "Happy belated birthday. Don't make a big deal out of it." That was the lesson I learned over and over again. Don't make a big deal out of anything, especially not yourself. As I grew older, the chasm between me and the rest of my family widened. My sisters both received brand new cars on their 16th birthdays, complete with giant red bows on the hoods. When I turned 16, my father handed me a city bus pass and delivered a stern lecture about the importance of responsibility. "You're a smart girl, Chloe," he said, his tone suggesting this was a great favor. "You can figure out how to get around. We don't want to spoil you." They didn't spoil me. They simply ignored me. I worked hard because I had no other choice. I got a job at a local diner the moment I was legally able. I saved every single penny. I bought my own clothes. I paid for my own school supplies. I funded my own field trips. My sisters would openly laugh at my work uniform. "You smell like grease," Mia would say, wrinkling her nose dramatically when I came home from a long shift. "At least I'm making my own money," I'd reply. Sophia would just laugh. "Why work when Dad pays for everything?" She was right, of course. Dad paid for everything, for them. When it was time to think about college, my parents sat me down for one of their rare, serious talks. "Chloe," my father began, putting on a somber expression. "We've been looking at the finances. Sophia's tuition at that private arts college is very high, and Mia will need a car soon. We simply can't afford to pay for your university." I just stared at them. They lived in a massive house. They took regular vacations to Europe, vacations I was often left behind from because, as they'd say, someone needs to watch the dogs. "Okay," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady, even as my heart felt like it was cracking. "I'll handle it." "Good girl," my mother said, patting my hand condescendingly. "We knew you'd understand. You're so independent." Independent was just their code word for neglected. So, I took out student loans. I worked 2 jobs while going to school. I attended a state university and majored in computer science. I didn't choose it because I had a deep-seated passion for coding, but because I had researched salaries and knew it paid well. I needed money. Money was the only form of escape I could see. While I was pulling all-nighters in the campus library, fueled by cheap coffee, my sisters were posting endless photos of their parties and tropical vacations on social media. While I was surviving on instant ramen noodles, They were dining at expensive restaurants, all on my father's dime. I graduated with honors. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said the 2-hour drive was too far. Instead of watching me receive my diploma, they went to one of Mia's tennis matches. She lost the match, but they still took her out for ice cream to cheer her up. I ate dinner alone in my empty dorm room that night, surrounded by packing boxes. After college, I moved back home. It was the last thing I wanted, but it was a strategic move. I had a plan. I had landed an excellent job at a major tech firm in the city. The starting salary was high, and the stock options were even better. But I didn't tell them any of that. To them, I was just working with computers. They never asked about my title. They never asked about my salary. They just assumed I was some kind of secretary or a low-level assistant. Chloe's job is so boring, Sophia would tell her friends when they came over. She just sits and stares at screens all day. I let them believe it. I paid them rent every month to live in my old bedroom, a room that was smaller than the guest bathroom. I bought all my own groceries. I kept my head down and perfected my role as a ghost in my own family's house. I'd come home late, deliberately avoiding dinner so I wouldn't have to sit there and listen to them talk endlessly about themselves. I would spend my weekends in my room or at quiet coffee shops just to be away from their dismissive glances. I felt like a tenant, not a daughter. Actually, a tenant would have been treated with more respect. A tenant has rights. A tenant gets noticed. I was just a shadow. They didn't know me at all. They had no idea I was one of the top performers on my development team. They had no idea I had been saving almost every single paycheck for 3 years. They had no idea that I was quietly building a small fortune while wearing clothes from thrift stores. They saw only what they wanted to see, the boring, quiet, plain daughter who would never amount to anything special, and I accepted it. I told myself it was fine. I told myself that I didn't need their love or approval. I just needed their roof over my head until I could afford to buy my own. I thought I had more time. I thought I could stay there for another year, save up enough for a massive down payment, and then just disappear silently into the night. I was wrong. Because while I was busy playing the part of the invisible daughter, they were making plans to erase me completely. The betrayal didn't begin at that dinner table. It had started 2 months earlier, on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was in my room, the smallest bedroom in the house, which faced the backyard. The window was drafty, and in the winter, I had to wear a sweater to bed. But I liked it because it was located far away from the living room, where my family would gather to watch TV at full volume. I was sitting on my bed with my laptop. I wasn't working. I was dreaming. I had developed a habit of browsing real estate websites. It was my form of escapism. I'd scroll through listings for condos in the city, small cottages by the lake, and townhouses with sleek modern kitchens. I would imagine a life where I didn't have to hide my snacks in a mini fridge so my sisters wouldn't eat them. I imagined a living room where I could sit and read a book without being told to move because Sophia wanted to practice her yoga poses. I was scrolling through a popular real estate app, looking at houses in our own neighborhood just to compare prices and get a feel for the market. I typed in our zip code. A map popped up, dotted with little red pins indicating houses for sale. I zoomed in on our street. I saw a pin located right on our block. That's odd, I thought. The Miller family lives next door. Are they moving? I clicked on the pin. The photo loaded. My heart stopped. The breath left my lungs in a sharp, painful hiss. It wasn't the Miller's house. It was my house. Our house. I stared at the screen, blinking rapidly, convinced it had to be a mistake. Maybe the app's GPS was off. Maybe it was an old listing from years ago that hadn't been removed. But then my eyes fell on the date, listed 2 days ago. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely control the trackpad. I clicked through the photos. There was our living room. The furniture had been rearranged to look more spacious, but it was definitely our living room. There was the kitchen, but the counters were completely cleared off. Usually, they were buried under my mother's junk mail and Mia's diet shakes. Then I saw the photos of the bedrooms. First, the master bedroom, my parents' room. It looked pristine. Then Sophia's room, painted a garish shade of pink and filled with mirrors. Then Mia's room, messy but recognizable. And then my room. I clicked on the photo labeled guest room office. It was my room, but my life had been erased from it. In the photograph, my bed was made with a generic white comforter I had never seen before. My desk was completely clear. My collection of books was gone. A vase of fake flowers sat on the nightstand, where my reading lamp should have been. They had staged my room. A wave of nausea washed over me. When did they do this? I looked at the date the photos were taken. It was from last Thursday. Last Thursday. I was at work all day. I suddenly remembered a text from my mother that day. "Don't come home until late tonight. We're having the carpets professionally cleaned." I had believed her. I stayed at the office until 9 p.m. to be out of their way. When I came home, the house smelled faintly of lemon, and everything looked normal. My room looked exactly like my room again. They had moved all of my personal belongings, brought in props, had a photographer take pictures, and then put all my things back exactly where they were, so I wouldn't notice. They were selling the house from under me, and they hadn't said a word. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the laptop screen illuminating my stunned face. I felt like I was in freefall. Why? Why wouldn't they just tell me? If they wanted to move, that was their right. It was their house. But why the elaborate secrecy? Why all the lies? I forced myself to read the property description. Beautiful family home in a prestigious neighborhood, spacious layout, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, ready for immediate move-in. 3 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. The house had 4 bedrooms. They weren't even counting my room as a proper bedroom. To the real estate world, and clearly to my own parents, my space didn't even qualify as a place for a person to sleep. It was just an office or a bonus room. I closed the laptop. I walked over to my door and opened it just a crack. I could hear their voices drifting up from downstairs. The TV was on, and I could hear the canned laugh track of a sitcom. "Pass the popcorn," I heard my father say. "Did you call the movers?" my mother asked. Her voice was low, but in the quiet of the house, sound carried. "Shh," my father hissed. "Not now." "She's in her room, Richard. She can't hear us," my mother said dismissively. "Besides, she always has those headphones on." "We just need to get the offer signed," my father said. "Then we'll tell her." "We'll give her a few weeks," my mother replied. "She's smart. She'll find a cheap apartment somewhere. Maybe she can find a roommate." "I just don't want the drama," my father sighed. "There won't be any drama," my mother said with absolute confidence. "Chloe doesn't do drama. She'll just pack up her things and go. She's used to fending for herself." I silently closed the door. I leaned my back against the wood and slowly slid down to the floor. They weren't worried about my feelings. They weren't worried about where I would go or how I would manage. They were only worried about avoiding drama. They wanted a clean, easy break. They wanted to cash out the equity in the house, move to their new life, and leave me to figure out the mess. They viewed me as a logistical problem, a piece of old furniture that needed to be disposed of before the new owners arrived. I didn't cry. That was the strangest part. I had expected to feel that familiar sharp sting of rejection that I had felt my whole life. On my birthdays, at my graduation, in 100 small moments. But this was different. This wasn't just passive neglect. This was active, calculated betrayal. This was a conspiracy. They had planned this. They had coordinated it. They had lied to my face for days, maybe even weeks. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It was like a switch being flipped in a pitch-black room. The sadness that had been my constant companion evaporated. The deep-seated longing for their love, the faint, flickering hope that one day they would finally see me. It all vanished. In its place was a cold, hard clarity. I stood up. I walked back to my desk and opened my laptop again. I didn't look at the staged photos this time. I looked at the asking price. It was a lot of money. The market was hot. But it wasn't an impossible number. I opened a new tab and logged into my online banking portal. Then, I logged into my investment portfolio. I looked at the numbers glowing on the screen. I had been working in high-level tech for 3 years. I had lived like a pauper. I had invested aggressively. My stock options from my company's IPO had fully vested 6 months ago. I stared at the total of my net worth. It was more than the asking price of the house. I could buy it. I could buy it in cash if I really wanted to, though getting a mortgage would be the smarter financial move. A wild, audacious thought began to form in my mind. My family wanted to sell this house. They wanted to leave me behind. They wanted to trick me. What if I turned the tables on them? What if I bought the house? But I couldn't just walk downstairs and announce, "I'll buy it." They would laugh in my face. They didn't believe I had any money. And even if they somehow knew I had the money, they might refuse to sell it to me out of sheer spite. Or worse, they'd try to guilt me into just giving them the money for free. "We raised you. You owe us." No, they could never know it was me. I needed to remain a ghost. I looked at the listing agent's name on the website. I didn't recognize the name or the agency. That was good. I took a deep, steadying breath. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't a victim asking, "Why don't they love me?" I was a strategist asking, "What is my next move?" The old Chloe, the sad, invisible girl, was dying in that small, drafty bedroom. A new Chloe was waking up. I went to bed that night and listened to the familiar sounds of the house. But it felt different now. It didn't feel like their house anymore. It felt like a battlefield, and I was the only one who knew the war had already begun. For the next 2 months, I played my part to perfection. I went to work. I came home. I ate my dinner quickly and washed my own dish. "How was work?" my mother asked one night, but only because she wanted to borrow $20 for the pizza delivery guy. "Fine," I said, handing her the cash. "Just busy." "You work too much," she said, taking the money without a word of thanks. "You should get out more. Meet a nice boy." "Maybe soon," I said non-committally. I watched them. I watched as they slowly began packing things away, trying to be subtle about it. My father started clearing out the garage. "Just doing some spring cleaning," he lied. It was October. My mother started bagging up old clothes for donation. "Just decluttering," she claimed. I saw the "for sale" sign go up in the front yard one morning. "What's that about?" I asked my father innocently as I was leaving for work. He looked panicked for a split second, then recovered with a shrug. "Oh, that. We're just testing the market, thinking about maybe downsizing in a few years. Nothing's immediate." A blatant, bald-faced lie. "Oh," I said, "okay." I got in my car and drove away, but I didn't go to work. I drove to a law office downtown. I had an appointment with a man named Mr. Harrison, a real estate attorney I had found online. His website said he was known for being aggressive and, more importantly, discreet. I walked into his polished office wearing my simple work clothes, black slacks and a gray sweater. I knew I looked young and unassuming. Mr. Harrison, an older man with piercingly sharp eyes, looked up from his desk. "Chloe Adams?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "You mentioned on the phone that you wanted to discuss an anonymous property acquisition." "Yes," I confirmed, sitting down. I placed a folder on his desk. It contained the printed listing for my parents' house and my detailed financial statements. "I want to buy this house," I said, "but the sellers cannot know it's me. Not until the ink is dry. Not until the deed is recorded. Not until they are long gone." He opened the folder. He glanced at the photo of the house. Then his eyes scanned my bank and investment statements. His eyebrows shot up. "You certainly have the funds," he said, a note of impressed surprise in his voice. "I do. And the sellers? Who are they?" "My parents," I said calmly. Mr. Harrison paused. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. He didn't ask for the sob story. He didn't ask why. He was a professional. He had likely seen every kind of family dispute imaginable. He just nodded. "We can do this," he said. "We'll form an LLC, a limited liability company with a generic name. I will be the public face of the transaction. All paperwork will go through my office. Your name will not appear on a single document the sellers see." "Good," I said. "If they ask who the buyer is, tell them it's an investment group. Tell them it's someone who plans to rent it out. They won't care. They just want the money." Mr. Harrison smiled. It was a shark's smile. "Consider it done." I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. I went home that night. My mother was complaining about dust. My sisters were arguing about a TV show. My father was hiding in the garage. They ignored me as I walked through the kitchen. "Don't eat all the grapes," Sophia called out without looking up from her phone. "I need them for a snack later." "I won't," I said. I went to my room, lay on my bed, and stared at the ceiling. Enjoy it while you can, I thought. This is my house now. 2 months later, we were sitting at that dinner table. The house was already under contract. The inspection had been waived. I knew the house better than any inspector. The financing was secured. The closing date was set for the day after they planned to move out. They thought they had found a miraculously lucky buyer who wanted a quick, no-fuss close. They were in a celebratory mood, toasting to their good fortune. And that's when my mother cut into her steak and announced, "We sold the house. You have 1 month to find a new place." I looked at her, then at the smug smirk on Sophia's face. I didn't say, "I know." I didn't say, "I bought it." I just said, "Okay." I took a bite of my potatoes, let them have their little moment of triumph. Let them think they had won. Let them think they were discarding me like a piece of trash. Because when they drove away from this house, they wouldn't be leaving me homeless. They would be unknowingly handing me the keys to my own kingdom, and they would never, ever see it coming. The 30 days following the dinner table announcement were a strange and surreal form of torture. Living in a house with people who are actively, cheerfully throwing you out is an experience I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's like being a ghost before you've actually died. The dynamic in the house shifted overnight. Before, I was simply ignored. Now I was a temporary inconvenience that was, thankfully, soon to be removed. There was a palpable air of excitement among them, a buzz of new beginnings that I was pointedly excluded from. My mother, Eleanor, was in her element, a whirlwind of organizing, labeling, and directing the impending chaos. "Mia, make sure you pack your trophies carefully," she'd shout up the stairs. "We don't want them cracking during the move." "Sophia, did you decide which shoes you're donating?" she asked later. We don't want to bring any clutter to the new place. The closets there, they're custom designed. We need to keep them nice. I stood in the kitchen just holding a glass of water. My mother bustled past me, clutching a roll of bubble wrap. She didn't ask about my packing. She didn't ask if I'd found a place to live. "Mom?" I said. She stopped but didn't turn around. She just let out a heavy sigh, her shoulders slumping as if my very existence was exhausting her. "What is it, Chloe? I'm very busy." "I just need to know the exact move-out date," I said, keeping my voice even. "The 28th, she said. "The movers arrive at 8 a.m. The house needs to be completely empty by noon. The new owners take possession at 1 o'clock. She finally turned to look at me then, and her eyes were cold as ice. "Do not be late, Chloe. I don't want your boxes sitting on the curb when the new owners arrive. It would be embarrassing for us." "It won't be a problem," I said. "Good," she replied. "And try to clean your room before you go. I don't want to leave a mess." I went back to my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed and took a slow, deep breath. The new owners take possession at 1 o'clock. She was talking about me. She just didn't know it yet. I had to maintain the charade. I had to make them believe I was scrambling and struggling. If they suspected for even a second that I had money, or that I was the mystery buyer, they would pull the plug on the sale just to spite me. Or they would invent a reason to raise the price astronomically. So I started bringing home rental brochures. I'd leave them on the kitchen counter where I knew they'd see them. I circled the cheapest, grimiest-looking apartments I could find. One evening, Sophia picked one up and laughed out loud. "Look at this, Mom," she said, holding it up. "Chloe is looking at a studio on 5th Street. Isn't that down by the old factory?" My mother glanced at the paper while chopping vegetables. "Oh dear, that's a very rough area." "Well, you have to live within your means, Chloe. It builds character." "It's so small," Mia chimed in, peering over Sophia's shoulder. 300 square feet? My closet is bigger than that." They all laughed. It was a cruel, bonding moment for them, a little ritual to reaffirm their superiority and my failure. I stood there, chopping carrots for a salad I knew I wouldn't be invited to share, and said nothing. On the inside, I was screaming, but on the outside, I just shrugged. "It's what I can afford," I lied. Meanwhile, the sale process was moving swiftly in the background. My attorney, Mr. Harrison, was a genius. He had created an LLC called Blue Horizon Properties. It sounded corporate, anonymous, and completely faceless. He handled all communications with their real estate agent. Every text update from him gave me a secret jolt of adrenaline. "They've accepted the offer," he texted me one afternoon while I was at my desk at work. "They signed the inspection waiver," he informed me a week later. Waiving the inspection had been my idea. I told Mr. Harrison it wasn't necessary. I knew the water heater was new. I knew the roof had a small leak in the attic that they had simply painted over, but I could fix that myself. Waiving the inspection made my offer seem even more appealing, like it was coming from a desperate, perhaps foolish investor. My father, Richard, bragged about it at dinner. "This buyer is a complete fool," he said, chewing on a piece of steak. "Didn't even ask for a walkthrough. They probably just want the property for the land value. This is easy money." "It's a blessing," my mother added. "It means we don't have to fix that crack in the basement wall." I chewed my food slowly, hiding a smile. I knew all about the crack in the basement wall. I was the one who had put the old bookshelf in front of it so they wouldn't have to look at it. The hardest part of the deception was the packing. I had to pretend to pack up my entire life. I went to the store and bought a stack of cardboard boxes. I spent my evenings taping them up, filling them with my clothes and my books. but I marked each one with a secret code. A small black dot in the bottom corner of a box meant, "Unpack this immediately." Soon my room was just a stack of brown cardboard. My walls were bare. It looked for all the world like I was leaving. One night, about a week before the move, I came home late. The house was dark. As I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water, I saw my father sitting alone at the table, a glass of scotch in front of him. He looked up, startled. "Oh," he said, "it's you." "Hi, Dad," I said. He looked at me for a long moment. For just a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Guilt, maybe? In his eyes. He glanced around the dark, half-empty kitchen, then back at me. "You find a place yet?" he asked, his voice gruff. "Yes," I said. "I found a place." "Good," he said, taking a sip of his drink. "You're a grown woman, Chloe. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet. We've carried you long enough." I almost laughed out loud. Carried me? I had paid them rent since I was 22. I bought my own food. I did my own laundry. I even mowed the lawn on weekends because he claimed to have a bad back. "I know, Dad," I said softly. "We need this fresh start," he continued, speaking more to himself than to me. "The new house. It's near the country club. It's got a big pool for the girls. It's what we deserve. The girls, Sophia and Mia. I was never one of the girls." "I hope you'll all be happy there," I said, and I genuinely meant it. I hoped they would be happy far, far away from me. "Yeah," he grunted. "Well, good night." He stood up and left the room without another word. He didn't ask if I needed help moving. He didn't ask if I had enough money for a security deposit. He just walked away. That was the last time I ever expected anything from him. That was the moment the final frayed thread of attachment snapped. The final closing documents had to be signed 3 days before the move. Mr. Harrison called me. "I need you in my office at 2 p.m., he said. I left work early, telling my boss I had a dental appointment. I sat in Mr. Harrison's plush conference room as he laid out a stack of papers that was 2 inches thick. "This is it," he said. "Once you sign these, the funds will be transferred and held in escrow. On the morning of the 28th, as soon as the deed is officially recorded with the county, the money transfers to your parents' account, and the house transfers to the LLC. And since you own the LLC, the house will be yours." My hand was shaking as I picked up the pen. I wasn't just buying a building. I was buying my freedom. I was buying back my dignity. I signed my name, Chloe Adams. I signed it again and again and again. When I was finally done, Mr. Harrison stood up and shook my hand firmly. "Congratulations, Ms. Adams," he said with a professional smile. "You are now a homeowner." I walked out of his office and into the bright afternoon sunlight. I felt dizzy with a strange mix of terror and elation. I drove home, to my house. I walked inside. My mother was yelling at Mia about how to pack shoes properly. The TV was blaring. The dog was barking. I walked through the chaos, a small secret smile on my face. I looked at the walls. Mine. I looked at the hardwood floors. Mine. I went up to my room and sat down amidst my coded boxes. And I waited. The morning of the 28th was a blur of noise and frantic energy. I woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of heavy footsteps and doors slamming. I got dressed in a simple pair of jeans and a t-shirt. I brushed my teeth in the bathroom that would, in a few short hours, be mine alone. I walked downstairs. The kitchen was already empty of food, the counters scrubbed bare. My mother was standing by the back door with a clipboard, looking stressed. "Chloe," she barked when she saw me. "The movers will be here in 20 minutes. Is your stuff out of the house?" "I'm moving it now," I said. I had a plan. I couldn't just leave my things in the room. I knew they would check. So I began the performance of carrying my boxes out to my car, filling the trunk and the back seat. I made sure to grunt with effort as I lifted the heavier boxes. My father stood by his shiny new SUV, sipping coffee from a travel mug. He watched me struggle with a box filled with books. He didn't offer to help. He just glanced at his watch. "Hurry it up," he said. "We don't want to block the driveway when the moving truck gets here." "I'm hurrying," I said through gritted teeth. Sophia and Mia eventually came outside. They looked perfect, of course. Not a hair out of place. They weren't lifting a single thing. They were holding iced coffees and scrolling on their phones while the professional movers handled all their belongings. "Bye, Chloe," Sophia said without looking up. "Good luck with your... whatever." "Yeah, bye," Mia echoed. I loaded the last box into my car. My old room was now completely empty. The entire house was echoing and hollow. The moving truck arrived, and large men in uniforms began hauling the furniture out. I watched as the dining table where I had been so casually evicted was carried out the front door. I watched as the sofa where I was never allowed to sit comfortably was loaded onto the truck. I felt a strange sense of loss, but not for the items themselves. I was watching the physical evidence of my unhappy childhood being stripped away, piece by piece. By noon, the house was completely empty. It was strange how much bigger it looked without all of their clutter. The sun streamed in through the bare windows, illuminating dust motes dancing on the hardwood floors. My family gathered in the driveway. Their cars were packed to the brim. The moving truck was idling in the street. This was it, the final goodbye. My mother walked over to me. She opened her purse and pulled out a crisp envelope. "Here," she said, shoving it into my hand. I opened it. Inside was a check for $1,000. "That should help with your deposit and first month's rent," she said, her tone businesslike. "Don't spend it all on clothes." $1,000. They had just made nearly $1 million on the sale of the house, and they were giving me $1,000. "Thanks, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "Well," she said, looking back at the house one last time. She didn't look sentimental. She looked relieved. "I'm glad to be done with this place. It was always too drafty." She turned back to me. "We'll be busy settling in for a few weeks, so don't call us. We'll call you when we're ready for visitors, but maybe give it a month or so. We want to get the girls settled in." "Okay," I said, "I won't call." "Good girl." She pecked the air somewhere near my cheek, not making actual contact. My father honked the horn impatiently. "Let's go, Eleanor. We're burning daylight." "Coming!" she yelled. She got into the passenger seat. Sophia and Mia were in the back, already engrossed in their phones. They didn't even wave. I stood on the sidewalk next to my packed car and watched them pull away. I watched the huge moving truck follow them down the street. I watched until they turned the corner at the end of the block and disappeared from sight. A profound silence descended. The street was quiet. The birds were singing. I was completely alone. I stood there for a full 5 minutes just to be sure. I wanted to make sure they didn't forget something and come back unexpectedly. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Harrison. "The deed is recorded. The transfer is complete. Congratulations, Chloe. It's yours." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 25 years. I turned around and looked at the house. It wasn't the Addams family house anymore. It was just a house. My house. I walked up the driveway. I didn't have a key. I had been forced to give mine to my father earlier that morning. But that was okay. I knew where the spare key was hidden, under a loose flagstone in the garden, the one my father always forgot about. I retrieved the key. I slid it into the lock. It turned smoothly. I opened the door and stepped inside. The echo was different now. It wasn't a lonely echo, it was a spacious one. I walked to the very center of the empty living room. I spun around in a slow circle. "Hello?" I said to the empty room. My voice didn't sound small anymore. It sounded strong. I walked back out to my car and popped the trunk. I started carrying my boxes back inside. I didn't put them back in the small, cramped room they had come from. I carried my boxes up the stairs and into the master bedroom. It was huge. It had a walk-in closet and a private bathroom with a deep soaking tub. It had a large bay window with a view of the back garden. I put my box of books down right in the center of the floor. I sat down next to it, cross-legged. I looked out the window. I was utterly exhausted. My muscles ached from the performative moving. I had no furniture. I had no food in the fridge. I would be sleeping on the floor tonight. But I smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. They were gone. They had left me behind, thinking I was nothing. But I was the one who was still standing. I was the one who held the ground. The transformation had begun. I took out my phone and ordered a pizza, a large pepperoni, all for me. And then I texted Mr. Harrison back. "Thank you. Now the real work begins." The first night in my own house was the strangest and most peaceful night of my life. I slept on a pile of blankets on the floor of the master bedroom. I didn't have a bed frame yet, or curtains on the windows, but I slept more deeply than I had in 25 years. There were no angry footsteps overhead. There was no TV blaring late into the night. There was no simmering anxiety about running into someone hostile in the hallway. I woke up with the sun. The morning light poured into the room, hitting the empty spot where my parents' massive bed used to be. It didn't feel like their room anymore. It felt like a blank canvas. I spent that first week just cleaning. I scrubbed the walls. I mopped the floors. I wanted to wash away every last trace of them. I wanted to erase the lingering scent of my father's cologne and my mother's hairspray. Then, the real renovation began. I didn't hire a contractor. I didn't want strangers in my sanctuary yet. I did most of the work myself on weekends and in the evenings after my real job. I started with the paint. My mother had loved beige. "It's elegant," she used to say. "It hides the dirt." I hated beige. To me, it was the color of prison walls. I went to the hardware store and bought gallons and gallons of paint in colors that felt alive. I painted the living room a soft, warm sage green. I painted the kitchen a bright, creamy white. I painted the master bedroom, my bedroom, a deep, calming navy blue. As I painted, I listened to music, loud music. I played rock and pop and jazz, singing along at the top of my lungs. "This is my house!" I yelled into the empty hallway, and the echo that came back sounded friendly and welcoming. Next came the furniture. I had money now. I didn't have to shop at thrift stores unless I actually wanted to. I went to real furniture stores. I sat on 50 different sofas until I found the perfect one. It was covered in soft green velvet, and it was big enough to nap on. I bought a huge dining table made of reclaimed wood, not because I planned on hosting big dinner parties, but because I wanted to be able to look at it and know that I could sit at the head of the table whenever I damn well pleased. I bought art, real art from local artists. I bought a huge painting of a stormy ocean for the entryway. I bought weird, colorful, abstract prints for the hallway. Slowly, painstakingly, the house changed. The cold, sterile atmosphere of the Addams family home faded away. In its place, something warm and personal began to emerge. The house started to smell like fresh coffee and vanilla candles. It started to look like a home. My home. My life outside the house changed too. Without the constant, draining negativity of my family, I had so much more energy. At work, I stopped hiding. I spoke up in meetings. I pitched a new project directly to my boss. "This is excellent work, Chloe," he said, looking at me with a newfound respect. "I didn't know you had this in you." "I've always had it," I said. "I just didn't have the space to show it." I got a promotion 3 months later to a senior developer title with a significant raise. I celebrated by buying a bottle of expensive champagne and drinking it on my new back porch, watching the fireflies dance in the garden. The garden became my favorite place. My father had never let me touch the garden. "You'll just pull up the flowers," he used to say. Now I planted whatever I wanted. I planted rows of tomatoes and herbs. I planted wild daisies that grew tall and unruly. I let the grass grow a little longer than was conventional because I liked the way it felt under my bare feet. But amidst all this newfound joy, there was a quiet, dull ache. It was the silence. Not the peaceful silence of the house that I had come to love, but the pointed silence from my family. 1 month passed. No call. 2 months passed. No text. 3 months passed. Then it was my birthday, in the 4th month. I woke up that morning and immediately checked my phone. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I didn't want to hear from them. But deep down, the little girl inside me, the one who had waited for a happy birthday wish for years, was still waiting. The screen was empty. No happy birthday, no thinking of you, no card in the mail. They hadn't just moved away, they had completely erased me. I finally realized that to them, I wasn't a person. I was an appliance. I was a broken dishwasher they had left behind when they moved. You don't call an old dishwasher to say happy birthday. It hurt. It really hurt. I let myself cry that day. I cried for about 10 minutes in my beautiful navy blue bedroom, and then I stopped. I washed my face, put on a nice dress, and called 2 friends from work, Sarah and Jen. "Come over," I said. "I'm making dinner." They came over, and they brought wine and a birthday cake. They had never been to my house before because I had always been too ashamed to invite anyone over when my family lived there. "Wow, Chloe," Sarah said, walking into the living room. "This place is amazing. You did all this yourself?" "I did," I said, beaming. "It feels so you," Jen said, looking around. We ate pasta and drank too much wine. We laughed until our sides hurt. We sat on the green velvet sofa and talked until well after midnight. That night, I realized I was building a new family, a chosen family. By the 6-month mark, the transformation was complete. I was no longer the hunched-over, quiet girl trying to be invisible. I walked taller. My skin was clearer. I smiled more. I had a routine. I had peace. I had almost forgotten the sound of my mother's critical voice and the look of disdain on my sisters' faces. I was safe. And because I felt safe, I let my guard down. I assumed they were gone for good. I assumed they were happy in their new life, terrorizing some new neighborhood, spending the money from the house sale on new cars and vacations. I assumed they had forgotten about this address entirely. I was wrong. They hadn't forgotten. They just hadn't needed anything from me yet. But greed has a way of bringing people back, and suspicion has a way of creeping in. It was a Tuesday evening in April. The windows were open, letting in the cool spring breeze. I was in the kitchen, making a stir-fry, listening to a podcast. My phone was charging on the counter. It buzzed. I glanced at it, expecting a text from Sarah about our lunch plans for the next day. I saw the name on the screen, Eleanor Adams. My stomach plummeted. The spatula froze in my hand. I just stared at the name. It felt like seeing a ghost. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked up the phone. I didn't unlock it right away. I just looked at the notification preview. Why are you still there? 5 words. No greeting. No, hi, honey. No, how are you? Just a stark accusation. My heart started to pound, but not with fear. It was a sudden, sharp spike of anger. Why are you still there? The question implied 2 things. First, that she knew I was still there. How? Had she driven by? Had a nosy neighbor called her? And second, it implied that I wasn't supposed to be there. She thought the house belonged to strangers, to Blue Horizon Properties. If she had seen my car in the driveway, or if Mrs. Miller from next door had mentioned seeing me, my mother would have jumped to one conclusion. She would assume I was squatting. She would assume I had refused to move out and was illegally occupying the property. She would assume I was ruining the deal for the new owners and, most importantly, embarrassing the family name. She didn't text to warn me. She didn't text to offer help. She texted because she was annoyed. She was probably terrified the new owners would sue them for failing to deliver an empty property. I looked at the text again. Why are you still there? A laugh bubbled up in my chest. It was a dark, cold, humorless laugh. She had no idea. She had absolutely no idea that I wasn't the tenant. I was the landlord. I was the owner. I was the master of this house. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could reply. I could type, I bought it, Mom. I could write, it's my house now. I could blow up her entire world with a single simple sentence. But I stopped. Why give her the satisfaction of an answer? Why explain myself to her? She had kicked me out. She had given me 30 days' notice like I was a stranger. She had driven away without a backward glance. She had lost the right to any answers the day she left me on that curb. I put the phone back down on the counter, screen side down. I didn't reply. I turned back to the stove and finished cooking my stir-fry. I sat down at my big wooden table and ate my dinner in the peaceful silence of my home. I checked my phone one more time before bed. Another text had come through. Chloe, answer me. Mrs. Miller said she saw you gardening. The new owners are going to call the police if you don't leave. You are making us look bad. Making us look bad. That was it. That was always it. It was never about my safety or my well-being. It was always about their image. I smiled. I turned my phone off completely. I went upstairs to my navy blue bedroom, climbed into my soft, comfortable bed, and slept like a baby. I knew they were coming. My silence would drive my mother insane. She couldn't handle being ignored. She would have to come investigate. She would come to yell at me and try to force me out. Let them come. I was ready. The next 3 days were a game of cat and mouse, but only the cat was frantic. I, the mouse, was sitting comfortably on my velvet couch drinking tea. My phone became a war zone. Wednesday morning, 3 missed calls from Eleanor. Wednesday afternoon, a sharp text from Sophia. Mom is freaking out. Why are you acting like a psycho? Just leave the house, loser. Wednesday night, a stern voicemail from my father. Chloe, this is your father. Pick up the phone. We need to know if you have vacated the premises. We don't want any legal trouble with the buyers. Call me back immediately. I listened to the voicemail on speaker while I watered my new houseplants. Legal trouble. He was terrified. He thought the anonymous LLC was going to sue him for breach of contract because the property wasn't empty. The irony was almost too perfect. He was afraid of me. He just didn't know it yet. I didn't answer any of them. I went to work. I came home. I lived my life. I could picture the scene at their end perfectly. They were in their new house, probably a flashy McMansion in some gated community, sitting around a giant marble island, stressing out. They were constructing a narrative. In their minds, I was having a mental breakdown. I was the crazy, unhinged daughter who refused to let go. I was the failure who couldn't even find an apartment and was now clinging to the old house like a barnacle. They were angry, but they were also getting curious. Why wasn't I answering? Was I dead, in jail? Or was I just being a brat? By Friday, the tone of the messages shifted. My mother sent a text that was almost polite. Almost. "Chloe, please just let us know you are okay. We are coming to town this weekend to pick up some mail we forgot. We will stop by the house. You had better be gone by then." Ah, there it was. The threat thinly disguised as a friendly visit. They weren't coming for mail. They were coming to evict me. Again. They were coming to physically force me out so they could save face with the new owners. I looked at the date. Saturday. Tomorrow. I had plans for Saturday. I was going to the farmer's market and then planned to spend the afternoon reading in my sunroom. Well, I could still do those things. I replied to none of the messages. I let the suspense build. I wanted them to make the 2-hour drive. I wanted them to walk up my driveway. I wanted them to see the truth with their own eyes. Saturday morning was beautiful. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. I woke up early. I cleaned the house, not because I was afraid of their judgment, but because I was immensely proud of it. I brewed fresh coffee. I put fresh flowers in the vase on the entryway table. I dressed carefully. In the old days, I would have worn baggy sweatpants around them, trying to look small and unthreatening. Today I wore my favorite jeans, the ones that fit perfectly, and a crisp white linen shirt. I put on my favorite necklace. I wore my hair down. I looked like a woman who owned her life. At 10 a.m. sharp, I heard it, the sound of a car engine in my driveway. I was in the kitchen, and I calmly walked to the living room window, peering through the blinds. A shiny new silver SUV was parked right where my old beat-up car used to be. My father's retirement gift to himself, probably bought with the proceeds from the house. The doors opened. My father got out, already looking angry, dressed in his country club casual golf attire. My mother emerged, looking frantic, smoothing her hair and glancing around to see if any neighbors were watching. Sophia and Mia climbed out of the back, looking bored and staring at their phones. They stood in the driveway for a moment, looking at the house. They must have noticed the changes immediately. The front door, which my mother had insisted on keeping a dreary dark brown, was now painted a bright, welcoming yellow. The overgrown bushes by the porch were neatly trimmed. There were new flower pots on the steps. My mother pointed at the yellow door and said something to my father. He just shook his head and marched up the path. I stood in the middle of my living room. I didn't hide. I didn't run. I waited. Knock, knock, knock. The pounding on the door was aggressive. "Chloe," my mother's voice came through the wood. "I know you're in there. Open this door right now." I took a slow sip of my coffee. I set the mug down on a coaster. I walked to the door. I took one last deep breath. This is it, I thought. The end of the old Chloe. I unlocked the deadbolt. I turned the handle. I swung the bright yellow door wide open. They were all standing there, crowded onto the small porch mat, looking ready for a fight. My mother had her finger raised, poised to poke me in the chest. But when the door opened, they all froze. They weren't looking at a dark, empty house. They were looking at a bright, light-filled space. They saw the warm, sage-green walls. They saw the expensive art hanging in the hallway. They could smell the vanilla candles. And they saw me. I stood in the doorway, blocking their path. I crossed my arms over my chest. I looked my mother directly in the eyes. "Hello, Eleanor," I said. "Can I help you?" The look on her face was worth every single penny I had spent on the house, and then some. She gaped, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You?" she stammered. "What? What have you done to the walls?" "I painted them," I said calmly. "You painted them," my father roared, stepping forward. "You can't just paint them. You don't live here. You're trespassing. The new owners are going to sue us for damages." "Where are the owners?" Sophia asked, peering around me, trying to get a look inside. "Are they here? Did you break in?" "Chloe, you are in serious, serious trouble," my mother hissed, her voice low and menacing. "We told you to leave. Why are you still here?" I looked at all of them, at their contorted, angry faces. They seemed so small. Their outrage was so petty. I leaned casually against the doorframe. "I'm not trespassing," I said, my voice perfectly steady. It didn't shake, not even a little. "And the owners aren't going to sue anyone." "How do you know that?" my father demanded. "You don't know who bought this place. It's some corporation. They'll have you arrested." "I know who bought it," I said. "Who?" my mother asked, her eyes narrowing. "Who is it? Did you talk to them? Did you beg them to let you stay for a while?" I smiled. It was a slow, dangerous smile that didn't reach my eyes. "No, Mom," I said. "I didn't beg anyone." I reached into the pocket of my jeans. I pulled out my keychain. I held up the single shiny new key to the yellow front door. "I know the owner," I said softly, but with a voice that cut through the air, "because I am the owner." Silence, absolute crushing silence. The wind rustled the leaves in the oak tree on the lawn. A car drove by on the street. My family just stared at me. They looked like statues in a bizarre garden of disbelief. My father blinked. "What?" "I bought the house," I said clearly, letting each word land. "I bought it 6 months ago. That LLC, Blue Horizon Properties? That's me. The all-cash offer? That was me. The waived inspection? Also me." I gestured behind me to the beautiful renovated living room. "This is my house," I said, "and you are all standing on my porch." My father was the first to recover, letting out a dry, incredulous laugh. "That's not possible," he said, shaking his head. "You? Buy this house? You work at a help desk, Chloe. You make minimum wage." "I never worked at a help desk," I corrected him. "I'm a senior software engineer. I have been for over 3 years. You just never bothered to ask." He stared at me, his face turning a blotchy red. "But the money? This house cost a fortune. Where did you get that kind of cash?" "I saved it," I said simply. "I invested. While you were buying new cars for Sophia and paying for Mia's private tennis lessons, I was saving every single penny. I had stock options. They did very well." My mother pushed past my father. She tried to step over the threshold, but I didn't move. I remained planted firmly in the center of the doorway. "You tricked us," she accused, her voice rising to a screech. "You let us think we were selling to a stranger. You let us move out." "You kicked me out," I reminded her, my voice cold. "You gave me 30 days. You didn't care where I went. You just wanted the money." "But we could have kept the house in the family," she yelled. "If we had known you had money, we could have worked something out. We could have stayed." "That," I said, looking her dead in the eye, "is exactly why I didn't tell you." Sophia pushed forward now, her eyes wide as she took in the velvet sofa and the new flat-screen TV on the wall. "You stole this from us," she spat. "You knew we wanted a fresh start, and you stole our house from under us." "I paid fair market value," I said. "Actually, I paid over the asking price. You got your money. You got your fresh start." "It's not fair," Mia whined from the back. "My room. I bet you changed my room. Did you touch my room? It's not your room anymore, Mia, I said. It's a guest room. And yes, I painted over that awful purple. My father looked like he was doing rapid mental calculations. He was finally realizing that the daughter he had ignored, the one he had written off as a complete failure, was actually the most successful person in his family, and he had treated me like dirt. But instead of shame, I saw a flicker of greed in his eyes. "Well," he said, attempting a smile and smoothing his shirt, "this is certainly a surprise. But we are here now. We drove 2 hours. Aren't you going to invite us in? It's hot out here." He took a step forward, fully expecting me to move aside like I always had, expecting me to revert to being the obedient, quiet Chloe. I didn't flinch. I didn't move an inch. "No," I said. My mother gasped audibly. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated. "You are not coming in." The word hung in the air between us like a physical barrier, a slap. "I am your mother." My mother's face twisted in fury. "You cannot deny me entry to my own home." "It's not your home," I said calmly. "I have the deed. I have the keys. It is my private property, and you are not welcome guests. You are uninvited intruders." "We raised you," my father shouted, his face now purple with rage. The neighbors were definitely starting to come out onto their porches to watch the show. "We put a roof over your head for 25 years. You owe us." "I owe you nothing," I said, my voice low but carrying with absolute certainty. "I paid you rent. I bought my own food. I raised myself because you were too busy fawning over Sophia and Mia. And when you were done with this house, you threw me out like last week's garbage. You didn't care if I ended up on the street." "We knew you'd be fine," my mother lied, her voice wavering as she tried a different tactic. Guilt. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes. It was a masterful performance. "Chloe, how can you be so cruel? We're family. We just want to see the house. We want to see what you've done with it. Don't you want to show your own mother your hard work?" It was a trap, and I saw it clearly. I knew if I let them in, even for a moment, they would never leave. They would sit on my new sofa and criticize the paint color. They would open my fridge and help themselves to my food. They would start talking about how we could use the house for holidays. They would try to reclaim it, and me, through sheer force of will. "I don't need your approval," I said, "and I don't want your company." "You are a selfish, ungrateful brat," Sophia yelled. "I hope you rot in this big empty house all by yourself." "I'm not alone," I said, a small, sad smile touching my lips. "I have peace, and that's more than I ever had when you were here." I grabbed the handle of the door. "Go home," I told them all. "Go to your new house and leave me alone." "You can't do this to us," my father yelled, taking another step onto the porch, his hand raised as if to push me aside. I looked at him. I looked at the hand that had never hugged me, never patted me on the back, but had only ever pointed and commanded. "If you do not get off my property right now," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, "I will call the police, and I will show them the deed to this house, and they will physically escort you away." My father froze. He looked into my eyes and finally saw something there he had never seen before. He saw power. He lowered his hand. He stepped back off the porch. "You're dead to us," he sneered. "Don't come crawling back when you run out of money." "I won't," I said. I looked at my mother one last time. She was crying for real now, but they were tears of defeat. She had just realized she had lost the one thing she thought she owned completely, me. "Goodbye," I said. And I closed the bright yellow door in their faces. I turned the deadbolt. Click. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door and listened. I could hear them yelling on the driveway. I heard car doors slam. I heard tires squeal as they sped away. Then silence. I turned around and looked at my beautiful, peaceful living room. The sun was still shining. The air still smelled like vanilla. I hadn't crumbled. I hadn't apologized. I had won. The aftermath wasn't some explosive, dramatic event. It was quiet. For the first few weeks, they tried to claw their way back in. My phone would light up with texts. First came the anger. You are a disgrace to this family. Then came the bargaining. Let's just meet for coffee. Your father is sorry he yelled. Then came the feigned pity. We are worried about your mental health. It's not normal to cut off your family like this. I didn't read most of them. I archived them, and eventually I blocked their numbers, one by one. It was a strange, liberating feeling to block my own mother's number. It felt like cutting the rope to a heavy anchor. At first, I was afraid I would just drift away and be lost at sea. But instead, I floated up. I felt lighter. I realized something profound in those quiet, family-free months. They didn't fail to love me because I was unlovable. They failed to love me because they didn't know how to love anyone but themselves. I was never the problem. I was just the mirror they didn't want to look into. My life began to fill up with good things. I hosted a dinner party for my friends, and we sat at my reclaimed wood table and laughed until 2 a.m. I planted a vegetable garden and grew tomatoes that actually tasted like tomatoes. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scruffy little terrier mix I named Barnaby. He sleeps on the end of my bed every night, and he's always ecstatic to see me. The house became truly mine. The ghosts of the Addams family finally faded away. The hallway was no longer the place where I was ignored. It was the place where Barnaby and I played fetch. The kitchen was no longer the place where I ate alone. It was the place where I baked bread on Sunday mornings, filling the house with a warm, comforting smell. I do still think about them sometimes. I wonder if they're happy in their new house. I wonder if my father ever got that pool. But I don't miss them. I found out later, through a distant aunt who called me, that they told everyone in the extended family that I had gone off the rails and somehow stolen their inheritance. They painted themselves as the victims. I let them. I let them have their story, because I have the truth. And more importantly, I have the house. I'm sitting on my back porch right now, drinking my morning coffee. Barnaby is chasing a squirrel in the yard. The sun is warm on my face. I am not the invisible daughter anymore. I am the woman who bought her own freedom. If you're listening to this, and if you have ever felt like the shadow in your own family, if you have ever been pushed out, overlooked, or made to feel small, please, listen to me. You don't have to wait for them to see you. They might never see you. You don't have to wait for an apology that might never come. Sometimes you have to build your own home. Sometimes you have to be your own hero. And sometimes leaving them behind is the only way to finally come home to yourself.